Gas prices just hit their lowest point since May of 2021. Inflation has been slashed in half. Real wages are rising faster than the cost of living for the first time in years. And American farmers are getting billions in relief, funded not by taxpayers, but by tariffs on foreign nations. The economic nightmare Joe Biden left behind is being erased in real time, and the numbers are so good, even the critics can't spin it. What President Trump just announced has working families across America finally breathing again. Now, let me break it down, because for 4 years under Biden, American families watched their purchasing power evaporate. Groceries skyrocketed, gas doubled, rent exploded, and wages could not keep up. Kevin Hassett laid it out plainly. Biden dug a 20 to 23% hole in American wallets through inflation alone. That's not a policy failure. That is economic destruction. And someone had to fill that hole back in. And now the Trump administration is doing exactly that. Within 6 months, Trump signed the largest middle-class tax cut in American history. The press secretary announced that everyday Americans will hear stories of neighbors benefiting directly from tax rebates next year. Hassett confirming typical workers with no tax on tips and no tax on overtime could see an extra $1,600 to $2,000. Now, Dave Ramsey, not a political operative, confirmed interest rates are down and gas is below $3 almost everywhere. This is not spin. This is reality hitting American bank accounts. Speaking of feeling like yourself again, let me tell you about C60 Evo. When the economy recovers, you want the energy to enjoy it. Now, I've tried hundreds of supplements over the years. Nothing has delivered results like C60 Evo. Now, the prize-winning molecule made lab animals live 90% longer. My brain fog is gone. Joint pain I had for years virtually eliminated. My energy feels 20 years younger. This molecule is 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. The scientist behind it has been making it in his lab since 91. And the Paris study showed the longest life extension in history. So visit c60evo.com/NNN and use code NNN for exclusive savings. Whether you want more energy, clearer thinking, or to feel young again, this is your answer. The link below, c60evo.com/NNN. And then, of course, Trump turned to American farmers, the backbone of the nation. He announced $12 billion in economic assistance funded by tariff revenue from foreign nations. Secretary Rollins confirmed an $11 billion bridge payment going out to farmers by the end of the month. Trump is removing the pointless environmental restrictions that strangled farm equipment costs, and soybeans are already flowing to China again after Trump's meeting with Xi. Senator McCormick confirming inflation is now half of what was under Biden, and real wage growth is exceeding inflation. Ambassador Greer added that GDP is climbing and real incomes are rising as jobs come back to American soil. Here's President Trump just a few hours ago.
Everything, because it's so. I inherited a mess. I inherited a total mess. Prices were at an all-time high when I came in. Prices are coming down substantially. Look at energy. You and I discussed before the interview energy. Energy has come down incredibly. When energy comes down, everything, because it's so much bigger than any other subject. But energy has come down incredibly. Prices are all coming down. It's been 10 months. It's amazing what we've done. If you think of gasoline a gallon, they had it at $4.50, almost $5. You go to some of the states, you had it at $6. We hit 3 states 2 days ago, $1.99 a gallon. When that happens, everything comes down. Now, everything is coming down. With beef, I've just opened that up, where beef is going to start coming down pretty substantially. I inherited a mess.
Where's the beef? Beef's coming down. James Blair, 47, talking about fixing what Biden and the Democrats broke.
And the Democrats, well, the president understands how people feel. That's why he ran for office to begin with. The message is very simple. We are trying to fix what Biden and the Democrats currently in Congress broke. They raised inflation to its highest level ever in this country, right, which stole from the American people. Wages were down, prices were up, pressure on both sides. And the president is trying to make them whole. He's trying to give them back what was lost and give them more. He's done that through tax cuts, through the big, beautiful bill over the summer. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay, right? No tax on Social Security, the things that he ran on. Democrats fought us every step of the way. And two, he's fighting to bring prices down, and we've been successful in a lot of areas. And there's still more work to be done. But the point is, Biden and the Democrats broke it. Republicans and President Trump are trying to fix it, and the Democrats are stopping us every step of the way in any way that we can.
Okay,
They
so
can. Well,
And within 6 months, here's the press secretary.
Economic, and President Trump is going to give a positive economic focused speech where he talks about all that he and his team has done to provide bigger paychecks and lower prices for the American people. And don't forget, a year ago, President Trump inherited the worst inflation crisis in modern American history from the Biden administration. And I have watched every single day as President Trump and his tremendous economic team have been working to fix it. And they have through a very simple economic formula, which President Trump will talk about tonight. Number one, tax cuts. Within 6 months, President Trump signed the largest middle-class tax cut in American history. No tax on tips, overtime, Social Security. And you'll hear stories of everyday Americans tonight who will benefit directly from those tax rebates next year. You look at the massive deregulatory effort from President Trump and his team, which is saving American households and small businesses money. And then, of course, unleashing American energy dominance, which is having a direct impact on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we have seen oil prices down 20%. In 22 states, the average price of gas is less than $2.75 a gallon. Gas prices are at their lowest point in 5 years. This is all thanks to President Trump's economic agenda. There's a lot more work to do, and he'll talk more about that tonight. But this is going to be President Trump's bread and butter issue, focused on the economy. Nobody knows it better than him. And
I trust President Trump over anybody else. The guy's got business sense. Here's more from President Trump. This is 24 hours ago.
John Deere. The other thing I'd like to add before going to Scott, and I think it's very important, we're going to also give the tractor companies, John Deere and all of the companies that make the equipment, we're going to take off a lot of the environmental restrictions that they have on machinery. It's ridiculous. I know because I buy a lot of that machinery for different things. We have a lot of big clubs with, hundreds, thousands of acres. And I buy a lot of stuff. And you buy it, it's got so much equipment on it for the environmental, it doesn't do anything, except it makes the equipment much more expensive and much more complicated to work. And it's not as good as the old days. And we're going to take a lot of that nonsense off of the equipment, which is going to reduce, and we're going to do it. And we're going to say you're going to reduce the prices. We're not going to do it and they're not going to reduce. They're going to have to reduce their prices because farming equipment has gotten too expensive. And a lot of the reason is because they put these environmental excesses on the equipment, which don't do a damn thing except make it complicated, make it impractical. And you really have to be, in many cases, you need about 185 IQ to turn on a lawnmower now. So we're going to take that off, that crap off that they put on Biden mostly. And we're going to take that off. So that's going to make that'll bring down the equipment prices a lot.
That's right.
And we're going to do that immediately. You're going to work with Lee Zeldin, who's not here. He's doing a fantastic job. And Lee is going to work that out. And that would be most of it. It's crazy. The machines, they're always under repair because they're so complicated that you can't fix them. The old days you used to fix it yourself. Now you can't do that. You have to be a PhD from, let's say, MIT. Okay, so we're going to get that done. The other thing I'd like to...
Farmers are celebrating across the nation. Here is Secretary Rollins talking about the $11 billion bridge payments.
As the president said, we are very pleased to announce that today we are going to be effectuating an $11 billion bridge payment to our farmers. The money will move by February 28th of 2026, but by the end of this month, so just in the next couple of weeks, every farmer that is able to apply for it will know exactly what that number looks like. So as you are going to your lender, as you are working to ensure and understanding what you can plant for next year, you will have that number in hand. And we will continue to talk to our farmers, continue to understand exactly what this looks like and what is necessary. So As the president said, we are very pleased to announce that today
$11 billion. Here's President Trump talking about the tariffs and how it's helping the farmers.
Of dollars. We're delighted to announce this afternoon that the United States will be taking a small portion of the hundreds of billions of dollars we receive in tariffs. We are making a lot of money from countries that took advantage of us for years. They took advantage of us like nobody's ever seen. Our deficits are way down because of tariffs. I guess because of the election, because without the election you wouldn't have tariffs. You'd be sitting here losing your shirt. But we're taking in billions. We're really taking in trillions of dollars, if you think about it, Scott, because the real numbers, when you think of all the money being poured into the country for new auto plants and all of the other things, AI. So what we're doing is we're taking a relatively small portion of that, and we're going to be giving and providing it to the farmers in economic assistance. And we love our farmers, and as you know, the farmers like me, because based on voting trends, you could call it voting trends or anything else, but they're great people. They're the backbone of our country. So we're going to use that money to provide $12 billion in economic assistance to American farmers. $12 billion is a lot of money, Meryl. What do you think? Peanuts for you, though, right? Peanuts. She's a farmer of rice. This relief will provide much-needed certainty to farmers as they get this year's harvest to market and look ahead to next year's crops, and it'll help them continue their efforts to lower food prices for American families. Delighted to
food prices going even lower, President Trump. Let's keep going. We got some more from the cabinet meeting. He says farmers are an indispensable national asset, part of the backbone of America. Unfortunately, under Sleepy Joe, our farmers were crushed by the worst inflation in modern history, crippling restrictions on energy, water, and countless other necessities. Since my successful meeting, he says, in South Korea with President Xi, purchases have been made and soybeans are being exported out of the United States to China as we speak. Talking about maximizing domestic farm production, he says it's a big part of how we will make America affordable again and bring down grocery prices. Senator McCormick, we've made a lot of progress in 2025.
We inherited a train wreck from the Biden administration, out of control inflation, an enormous regulatory state, real wage growth hadn't kept up. And we've made a lot of progress in the last 12 months with the president's agenda. Inflation's about half of what it was on average during the Biden administration. Real wage growth exceeds the inflation numbers. And you've got all sorts of things that we did right out of the gate, which is putting money in the pockets of working families, whether it's the child care tax credit or no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. So we've made a lot of progress, but there's a lot more work to do. And I think the president will lay out that agenda and how all the policies that he's put in place are going to help working families. And there's more to come, particularly in deregulation and in energy dominance. Yeah. We inherited a train wreck.
Deregulation, energy dominance. The train wreck is getting back on course. Ambassador Greer, in addition to GDP growth in addition to the GDP growth overall, we're seeing increase in real incomes. And that's really what we're getting at fundamentally with the trade program, is reshoring more jobs. President Trump posted this on Truth Social 48 hours ago. While the United States has methods of charging tariffs against foreign countries, many of whom have for years taken advantage of our nation, the current method of tariffing before the United States Supreme Court is far more direct, less cumbersome, and much faster. All ingredients necessary for a strong and decisive national security result. Speed, power, and certainty are at all times important factors in getting the job done in a lasting and victorious manner. I have settled 8 wars in 10 months because the rights clearly given to the President of the United States. If countries didn't think these rights existed, they would have said so loud and clear. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Here's Kevin Hassett.
Of those There's a huge amount of positive news that the president is going to be breaking this week about the economy. You know, we've got a person who actually approached the studio with me, walked with me, who's tracking the openings, the groundbreakings for the new factories that are, you know, in the trillions of dollars of announcements that the president's been making. And we're up to almost 30 of those that actually the groundbreakings have happened. And so there's a lot of positive news that's positive for people's jobs, for people's incomes, and for inflation. And President Trump is just going to go out there and remind people of that. But in the end, again, going back to the eye on the horizon, that President Trump's economic policies were profoundly popular just before COVID in his first term because he had $6,500 of income growth after the big tax cuts. Yep. And so right now we're going into next year where the typical person who's got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime is probably going to see an extra $1,600 to $2,000. A lot of that will come as tax refunds in the beginning of the year. That kind of stuff is going to make it so that people are going to look at their wallets and say, oh, boy, this guy's really making me better off. And in the end, that's more important than any poll. The final thing I got to say is that we did look at a lot of the sentiment, the softer indicators over the last few weeks, and we found a pattern that I'm sure you guys could find a chart that would show, which is that consumer sentiment it tends to crater when there's a government shutdown. And so we have sort of back-to-back 4% quarters coming in, and then we got the government shutdown and all the chaos related to that. And the sentiment indicators went down, but the hard indicators really didn't. And that's a pattern that we've seen over and over again. There's a huge amount.
So listen, the numbers don't lie. Gas prices at multi-year lows, still dropping, inflation cut in half, real wages outpacing the cost of living, $12 billion flowing to farmers, the largest middle-class tax cut in history driving results. See, Biden spent 4 years destroying the American economy. Trump is rebuilding it in months. This is not campaign rhetoric. This is what making America affordable again actually looks like, and the establishment's no answer because the results speak for themselves. The story matters because for 4 years, American families were told inflation was transitory. They were told high gas prices were Putin's fault. They were told the economy was strong while they watched their savings disappear. Biden and the Democrats gaslit an entire nation while their policies crushed working people. Now the receipts are in. Trump inherited a total mess, and he's fixing it. Gas prices, $3. Inflation slashed, wages rising, farmers rescued, tax cuts delivering real money to real families. This is what happens when you have a president who actually prioritizes the American worker over global corporations and foreign interests. The Biden nightmare is over. The Trump miracle is only just beginning. And every trip to the gas station, every grocery run, every paycheck proves it. So I ask you, are you better off now than you were under Biden? Yes or no? Sound off in the comments, and you can check out the Next News merch shop. It's linked in the description.